a self-made millionaire. Thug living out of...
Good afternoon. Welcome to Jeffco Patriot Radio. This, of course, is 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL, powered by data centers. Yeah. Right, Billy Crow?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the stuff you're listening to now has been sitting in a data center.
Haters going to hate on that.
Yep.
You know, Billy Crow, back in the day when I was on the city council, by the way, I'm Tim Jones, former Speaker of your Missouri House. That, of course, is Billy Crow. He is the county councilman for the 2nd Council District in Jefferson County. This is Jeffco Patriot Radio. Thanks for listening to News Talk STL, especially on Big Game Sunday here. We know you're all getting primed and pumped and excited for the Super Bowl this afternoon, although Billy Crow and I are wondering, where's the real Super Bowl that has the Dallas Cowboys in it?
Yeah, I haven't seen a real Super Bowl in at least 20 years because, I mean, that's the only team that matters.
Well, we'll have to suffer through this one.
Another one, yeah.
Indeed. I'm sure the commercials will be fantastic. From what I have been told, and I purposefully have not watched it because I hope I'm not. We're going to a party this afternoon, and I hope everybody's quiet. I hope I can watch. I hear that finally Anheuser-Busch, I guess owned by InBev, has finally realized what its real American roots are, and apparently this commercial that we're in this year are going to bring big, tough, brawny guys like you and I to the edge of tears. It's all patriotic and Eagles and military and police and God bless America stuff. So finally, they got rid of the weird he-she that was trying to sell Bud Light.
Well, on that point, to continue that point, are you going to be watching the actual Super Bowl halftime show, or are you going to be tuning into Turning Point's halftime show?
Well, I will be a guest at someone else's house, but they're right-thinking individuals, and so as long as they figure out where to find that streaming on some other device, I have a feeling we may be temporarily changing the channel.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, you know, Billy, back in my day, I was going to say as a city council, I cut my teeth in official elected politics as a city councilman. One of my very good friends, Colonel Pat Dudley, who's thank God still with us. He's a fount of wisdom and witticisms. And he used to say to me, well, Tim, congratulations, good luck, and I'm sorry, because from here on out, it's going to be all about hogs, dogs, and fences. Yeah. And then, you know, meaning, okay, it's all about very local politics and potholes in your neighbor's yard and this, then the other neighbor's yard and, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And then added to that, the big controversy, Bill, did I tell this story yet about the lavender farm?
I think you did last week.
Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, you wouldn't, the strangest things engender people to pick up almost literally pitchforks and torches.
Right.
And you would have never thought that someone proposing a genteel use on a piece of agricultural property, an actual agricultural use of a lavender farm, would have brought people to basically making death threats against the city council. But that was what I dealt with back in my day. So, Billy, this whole data center thing, I've dealt with all that and more in the guise of the lavender farm. I mean, you would have thought that us bringing a lavender farm into the Legends subdivision in the city of Eureka was we were going to propose to put up, I don't know, maybe a 300 concrete tower to the Tower of Babylon or something. I mean, it was unbelievable. 1 year after the lavender farm use was approved, I had people coming up to me and literally apologizing for how Neanderthal and ignorant that they acted towards me. And I said, you know what? We all make mistakes. We all sometimes lose sight of common sense and vision. And I think sometimes if you take a deep breath about these things and actually do your actual homework, then you might be able to figure some of these things out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we had the EDOC meeting, and again, we were talking about some proposed legislation.
Now, this is on the county level, right?
This is on the county level, right?
So on the county level, you're all preparing for something that, might I remind people, so for all of you Trump lovers out there in the audience, and we know that there's a bazillion of them in Jefferson County, I would imagine that President Donald J. Trump still enjoys a 90, 95%, maybe higher approval rating in places like Jefferson County, right?
Yes.
Donald Trump signed an executive order last July demanding that we accelerate and streamline the approval of anything and everything involving artificial intelligence and, yes, data centers. So if you got a problem with us, then you got a problem with Donald J. Trump. And I do have to say, in all disclosure, you know, a lot of people come to me for my assistance, my advice, and my help on a lot of things. And I've been asked to lend my golden pipes to talking about data centers. That's because people knew I was already in favor of them. And so I'm more than happy to explain why. Look, if you use a phone, if you are a person who uses a computer, then all of that data, it doesn't get stored like you and I talked in some mythical cloud. It actually gets stored in as you said, a big gray box somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I was actually talking to a constituent the other day that is like, that actually was asking me, what is stored in these things? And I'm like, it's just a hard drive, but instead of in your house, everyone's hard drives are stacked together in this room. That's really all it is one big hard drive. And these conversations are so, it is interesting. We all think of politics, we see state and local. So when we're Republicans, property rights, property rights, property rights. But when you get down to the local side of it, people get very upset about what their neighbors do with their property. And it's very, very frustrating as a Republican in the county going, but this is a business. They own this property. The people that sold it to them, they had a right to sell it. They got a right to build something with it. Why should I, as a Republican, say, sorry, you can't do this or you can't do that? Especially it's zoned in Jefferson County, one of the proposals, planned industrial.
If you don't want things that are personally objectionable to you built on ground that you feel is not appropriate for those uses, then ultimately the only way that you can totally prevent that is to buy it all yourself.
That's right.
Now, I don't think you nor I, nor any sane, rational person is proposing that things like data centers or Walmarts or nuclear power plants or Jim and Joanne's Grill should ever be put in an inappropriate place,
right,
or not have any restrictions or regulations. Everything should, when planning and zone, when planners and zoners, when city council people, when county council people, when state legislators are making these decisions, they should work through these things as rationally and logical as they can to make sure that they are placed in the right places with the right guardrails around them and with the right rules and regulations.
Yeah, I mean,
versus the commie Chinese owning all of our data in communist China.
Right. And one of the questions I posed to this is like, okay, look, it's planned industrial. Okay. Would you make a concrete facility have these same rules? Well, no. Would you make a junkyard have these same rules? Well, no. Well, that's what it's going to go next to. So why do we want this to be this big fancy building when it's literally going to go next to a junkyard or a concrete plant? It blows my mind. Because there's this big bad boogeyman that we think we can plunder and keep out, and it's just not right.
I think a lot of times what people conceptualize in their minds is not what actually ends up existing in reality.
That's right, and I think a big part of that is obviously, I think you've seen them, I've seen them, the State Department unclassified documents where Chinese and Russian and Pakistani and Indian and Iranian hackers are manipulating all of the Google searches, so we only see the worst case scenarios, the bad stuff, right?
People have to understand,
30 years ago
there are Russian and China bots behind a lot of the negative propaganda that people unfortunately pick up and take as gospel truth.
That's right.
EDOC is, again, what?
The Economic Development Opportunity Committee. And so what we've done is said, okay, data centers are an economic opportunity. So how are we rationally going to allow them into the community?
And some studies I've seen, Billy, would lend credence to the argument that they would dramatically decrease something that is another bane of existence of Missourians, property taxes.
Yeah, the amount of potential property tax. And there's a lot of numbers that have been thrown out there, and until there's an actual end user and an actual site plan, we don't really know what those numbers are going to be.
With an actual study backing it up.
Yeah, we really don't know what those numbers are going to be. But if you look at other places, those are the numbers that are just life-changing for the residents as far as property tax relief, about as money the school gets, the money the roads get, all this infrastructure. Like people that have been on wells and septic all of a sudden have city water and city sewer because these data centers had to run city water and sewer all the way out to their place, and they were able to tap off that. Another thing is these places are going to have to put in a ton of like broadband infrastructure just for them because it's all on the internet, right? Well, if you lived in I lived in Southern Jefferson County. There's a lot of folks that listen to this that live in Southern Jefferson County. Wouldn't you like broadband speed? Be able to live out in the country and have the broadband speed and work from home. Like my sister, she lived down there. She ended up having to move to St. Charles because she had a work from home job that she didn't have fast enough speed down there. So she ended up in St. Charles, downtown St. Charles, not where she wanted to live because the economic opportunity wasn't there for her in Jefferson County.
Bill, you and I are old enough to remember the once mighty Chrysler facility that used to be in Fenton, Missouri.
Absolutely.
Bill, you remember how big that thing was?
It was massive.
It was massive. And I wonder what the discussions were. I think you and I we're not old enough to remember when that was actually proposed and built. It was decades and decades and decades ago. I have a feeling there was probably some angst and anger and upset people about that when they were talking about putting that facility somewhere in the county of St. Louis. Well, thankfully, they found a nice big I would imagine, empty plot of land that time on an interstate highway. But I'll bet some people overlooking, because there's a lot of cliffs and hills around that facility.
Right.
I don't know if there was homes back then when they built them or not. There's homes up there now, and probably were during the late stages of that plant. But once again, how sad were we when that facility closed down and left?
Yeah, I mean, so many jobs. I mean, I remember at the time I was doing youth pastoring at a little church in Raintree in Hillsboro, and there was 5 guys that lived there that were losing their jobs because the Chrysler plant was shutting down. And to go back to these Chrysler plants or any car plants, right? Talking to some of my labor friends,
major manufacturing facility.
Yeah. So, a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't have a lot of jobs. There's not a lot of people that are going to be working in these big data center warehouses, right? Well, except for the fact that these things are going to have to be continually be serviced by trained mechanics, electricians, pipe fitters all the time. But the discussion we've had is because technology changes so fast, it's going to be like a car plant that every 5 or so years has a retooling for a new design. 2 or 3 of these things in the St. Louis area will replace all the jobs we lost when all the as far as on the construction side, that all the car plants, when they left, it'll replace those jobs.
While paying a ton of taxes along the way.
And a lot cleaner than those
That's for
car
sure.
facilities.
Yeah, a lot less daily use impact.
Right. Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. So I just wish everyone would take a deep breath, step back, maybe go actually visit one of these current facilities, which, by the way, folks, data centers have been with us for about, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And now they're just more ubiquitous, and they're being built in greater numbers because there's much more demand. And again, if you use your phone or computer to do anything in your daily life, and you continue to do so with the expansion of apps, and usages, and AI, if you want to perpetuate the production of the workforce of tomorrow, we're going to have to figure out as Americans how to build and manage American data and tech. Or guess what? The communist Chinese will be happy to do it for us.
Right. And
just like they're selling us solar panels and windmills.
Right. Exactly. And I guarantee there's people out there listening to us right now or watch us on YouTube that are going to say, you guys are just shills. How much are they paying you to say this? Well, I'm going to be very clear. I am for data centers because I believe in the economic benefit that they can have for our county. I'm a 3rd generation member, or resident of Jefferson County, and there's so much economic opportunity that has been passed over by us. This is a once in a generation opportunity to really change the economic future for our county. And I think it's something that does it in a way that doesn't destroy the natural beauty of Jefferson County. It's not a lead smelter. It's not a nuclear reactor. It is a hard drive.
It's not even an automotive plant.
Right. It is a giant hard drive.
Well, you know what I shill for? The America First agenda. And I'll just remind people that Donald J. Trump signed an executive order on this issue about 7 months ago. Billy, we got 2 huge events coming up this coming weekend. Oh, it's Valentine's Day weekend. What's up with that?
Yeah, it happened way too fast. And, well, I'm still alive, so I still have a chance to actually get a Valentine's gift.
Everyone does.
Right? So make sure you get that. And I'll be doing that as soon as I leave here. But yeah, so we've got on the 14th, Saturday the 14th, at the Rickman Auditorium Center, there's a great event. It's an Elvis, Patsy Cline, and Loretta Lynn tribute show. All favorites of mine. The doors open at 6. The show starts at 7. You can get tickets. If you go onto the Rickman Auditorium's website, you can find a link there to get tickets, anywhere from $25 to $55, depending on where you're sitting there. If you've been there, it's a beautiful 2-tiered facility on Fox's campus. A great place.
And this coming weekend is also Mardi Gras weekend, the Twin City Mardi Gras weekend, Festus and Crystal City celebrating that together.
Yes. So last year we had Luke Tatros from Tatros Bar and Grill on talking about, because last year was the first year of them doing this big Mardi Gras celebration. It was such a great event. They're doing it again. There's things going on from Friday the 13th, right? They're going to have a band there at Tatros Bar and Grill for $18. Saturday is going to be the big Mardi Gras Day parade at noon, and they're actually going to have shuttles from Tatros and from other places around Festus to be able to get to Festus Main Street. So if you go to Tatros Bar and Grill, their Facebook page, you can find more information about that there. And then at the evening, they're going to have the Steve Ewing Band at the Contrarian Concert Hall right there on Main Street.
Fantastic. A lot of great events every weekend in Jefferson County, and those are 2 great ones as we head towards Valentine's Day, Mardi Gras, and so much more. Next up on Jeffco Patriot Radio, we're going to talk to the top legal eagle of Jefferson County, Judge Vic Melenbrink. He's the presiding judge of the 23rd Circuit Court. We'll talk to the good judge next on Jeffco Patriot Radio with Tim Jones and Billy Crow, 101 Talk STL. Tim Jones here, former Missouri House Speaker and now Chief Cat Herder for the Missouri Freedom Caucus. You know, when we're taking on the rhino establishment swamp in Jefferson City, we always know that our gavels are bigger than theirs, but sometimes it calls for even greater firepower.
Yeah, America!
Well, and good afternoon once again. Welcome back to Jeffco Patriot Radio. Big game Sunday. Have a great time this afternoon. Be careful. Be good. No snowstorms or ice storms or any of that sort of storm. So things are kind of evening out in the heartland. This is 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. If you miss the show, if you missed the first segment or you can't hang out for the third, every single thing we do here is a podcast as well as a broadcast. So if you're listening to us right now live, you're listening to the broadcast. But if you miss any parts of the broadcast, we podcast everything, every single show, Monday through Friday, from dawn through dusk, every weekend program. Best way to find all that stuff is just go to newstalkstl.com. You can search our lineups for your favorite programs. Then you can just type in the names of those programs into wherever the heck you get podcasts. You can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Download the app too. News Talk STL app is available for you wherever you get apps. And that way you can carry us. Phone becomes the radio, and then we become transportable with you anywhere on the planet. You can get a cell or a Wi-Fi signal. All right, Bill, we got a very special guest. And as a recovering attorney, which I am, who practiced quite a bit back in the day in Jefferson County, I haven't set foot in the courthouse maybe in a long time. It's probably a good thing. I'm really excited about our next guest. He is Vic Melenbrink. He's the presiding judge of the 23rd Circuit Court. And Billy, I know we're going to spend a segment and a half or ish with the judge. And then I know maybe before we wrap up, we need to get to a couple of the developments in Jefferson City.
Yes, we didn't actually get a chance to talk about that.
And specifically involving some news about one of the Jefferson County State Representatives, Renee Reuter.
Yes.
So a little Renee Reuter, a little Jeff City update. We'll maybe do that in the last few minutes of the program, but we're going to spend most of the next two segments with the good judge himself. Your Honor, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Afternoon. It's great to be here.
So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Most people may have not ever had any contact with you, which is maybe a good thing. Judges also do a lot of great positive stuff as well. They help people with the administration of justice. So tell us a little about yourself, how you became the presiding judge. Give us that pathway, that journey through life that you've had up to this point.
Sure. Well, first off, I appreciate the invitation to be here. It's always great to do some civic education and help people learn a little bit more about the branch of government that people tend to know the least about. Mm-hmm. So I always like to try to fix that. My name is Vic Melenbrink. I'm the circuit judge for the 23rd, one of the circuit judges. I'm the judge for Division 5. We have 6 circuit judges, 6 associate circuit judges. So we've got 12 judges for Jefferson County. That's the 23rd Circuit. We are one of the circuits in the county or in the state that is a single county. So smaller counties, sometimes you have a multi-county circuit, but we're just Jefferson County. So the 12 of us do the entire county. There's no districts or anything like that. So we do the normal trial stuff from criminal cases to civil cases, domestic and family and probate and juvenile and all that, all sort of the trial level stuff that you have in the state of Missouri.
Over the last, let's say, 2 decades, how has the circuit court in Jefferson County grown? It has grown, right?
It has definitely grown. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been a judge since 2016, or 2017. I won my first election in 2016. And so I've been in my office since January of 2017. I know that before then, in the towards 2000, there were only a few circuit judges. They added, I don't know the exact number, but a good number of judges have been added in the last 20, 25 years. So the circuit has definitely grown since 2000.
And that's because of the population growth, right? Which has resulted in more cases before the court.
Yes, absolutely. We have definitely seen an increase in caseload, certainly since 2000, and even in the last few years. And there's also probably know that some of the traffic courts or the city courts in the county have closed down, so we've been taking those cases as well. Mm-hmm. So we have seen an increase in our caseload, and that obviously means that each of the judges has to carry an increased caseload. So yeah, that's something that we have to deal with and manage those increased numbers.
So you said you're the presiding judge. some might hear that and go, "Oh, does that mean you're the boss of all the judges?" What does that mean?
That is judge of judges.
That is definitely not the case. If I were to say that, some of the other judges would drive up here right now and have something to say about it. No, the presiding judge, I handle the administrative side of things. And I've been the presiding judge since January of last year, so I'm about a year and change into doing this. So the presiding judge handles case assignments. So, deciding which judges are going to handle domestic and civil and criminal and sort of distributing things to make sure nobody gets overloaded. If it snows, I have to make a decision about whether we close court operations.
You're kind of like the air traffic controller.
It's
the circuit.
Yeah, it's very administrative. I do not second guess legal decision by the other judges. That would be the Court of Appeals. So we're trial judges. If somebody isn't happy with how we did something in Jefferson County, they can appeal to either the Missouri Court of Appeals for the Eastern District, or it could go all the way up to the Missouri Supreme Court, or I suppose even the U.S. Supreme Court if it got to that.
So how do you work with like the circuit clerk? 'Cause to my understanding, the circuit clerk's kind of in charge of the courthouse, right? How does that work?
Sort of. So I kind of view it as a team.
Okay.
I'm not the circuit clerk's boss. So we work together. I have a clerk who's assigned to my division, and we're, my clerk and my court reporter and my bailiff. I'm in charge when we're in the courtroom and we're having court, but I absolutely view it as it's a team that we're all working together, and we each have jobs that we need to do. If the court reporter can't do her job because she can't hear something, that messes everything up. If the bailiff isn't there, we can't go. If my clerk isn't there, we have problems. So we all have to work together to make sure that everything functions and that we can, get cases processed.
Hey, I want you to give a shout out because I know, and I'm sure you probably agree with me, the unsung heroes of the courthouse, the clerks.
Oh, absolutely.
They work tirelessly, endlessly, so hard. And so the one person that you want to be the nicest to next to the judge is the clerks in the courthouse, right?
Arguably the clerk is above that. So no, I think, absolutely. The clerks do all the work that they do.
Kind of like your chief of staff,
you couldn't do it.
Almost, right?
Everything gets done by the clerks. I mean, the judges have to make, the decisions and things like that, but all the real work is done by the clerks. If, they're the ones that process all the records and make sure it's available to people. And, we get lots of pleadings and filings every day, and all of that stuff has to be, processed appropriately. And if that's not done well, you can have a real train wreck in a courthouse. So we're very lucky to have a good set of clerks.
Because we require, in our American system of jurisprudence, we require a lot of procedural safeguards and guardrails to make sure the system functions properly. You're administering the substantive justice and making the legal decisions, but the clerks are making sure that all of those procedural hurdles and requirements are being met every day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we work together, and, I'll talk to the clerk's office if they have questions about how things need to, how we want something handled. We work together to solve all those problems. So yeah, it works very well. We've got, I can't say enough nice things about the clerks that we have in the courthouse. It's a great set of staff.
So we hear it a lot at the national level when it comes to like Supreme Court or things that the Justice Department is doing, like when it comes to like the idea of the rule of law, right? Like we're nations of laws, not of personalities or kings or whatever, right? So what, when it comes to the rule of law and it comes to where you fit into that at the circuit as a circuit judge versus like a Supreme Court judge, how did all those things work out?
So I guess talking about the comparison between, say, United States or Missouri Supreme Court and a trial court judge, I would say the big difference there, they probably see a lot more legal questions. I mean, we see legal questions too, but a lot of the questions that I deal with in, my day-to-day work are things like, I have a criminal defendant who's on probation and they didn't do the treatment they were supposed to do. So am I going to send them to the Department of Corrections, or are we going to give treatment another shot? Because it's all those sorts of things, which there's not necessarily a right legal answer. It's not like there's a law somewhere that says this is how many chances you give somebody to do that, or which school district, the kids should go to in a divorce case. Things like that. There's not necessarily a good legal answer. It's a very fact-driven, what are the different factors that we want to take into account? The judges on the Supreme Court in Missouri or the United States, that's not the sort of stuff they're dealing with. They're dealing with statutory interpretation and constitutional interpretation. How are we going to, decide the meaning of these things? That's something that can happen at the trial level, but it's pretty uncommon. The vast majority of our day-to-day work is very fact-driven, and sort of exercising discretion to try to, do what's best for the kids in a custody case or in a juvenile case or a criminal case, try to handle those fact questions. So that's how I would describe the difference between Supreme Court judges and trial judges. So you talked about government of laws and not men. That's more of a distinction, I think, between judges and politicians. Politicians, they're elected as representatives. You got the House of Representatives and that sort of thing. And this may be an unpopular thing to say, but I'm not a representative of Jefferson County. Sometimes the law might require a judge to do something that isn't popular, and we're supposed to do that.
And if you want the law changed, that's when you need to go speak with your state representative or senator.
Exactly.
You're applying the law. You're trying to do your best to apply the law as it's written.
I've been pretty lucky that I haven't had a ton of situations when I've had to say, I don't like what I have to do right now. If you don't like it, you need to go get the law changed because I have to follow the law, or I have to follow a ruling from the Missouri Court of Appeals or the Missouri Supreme Court. Sometimes that happens, and I have to follow those things because that's my job. But that's a big difference between judges and politicians. Sometimes we kind of get ourselves in a situation where we have to do something that's not popular.
You mentioned the growth in the circuit and the fact that you have, did you say there's 6 circuit and 6 associate?
We have 6 circuit judges and 6 associate circuit judges. So the main difference is that circuit judges handle felony criminal cases, associate circuit judges do misdemeanors, and then in civil cases, it's just kind of a dollar figure. The bigger dollar cases are circuit judges, and the smaller are associate. Other than that, the work that circuit judges and associate circuit judges do is very similar.
So my question about that, and if this is a political question you can't answer, then please don't. I'm sorry, but is that enough judges? Does Jefferson County need more judges? Is that something that you can have an opinion on?
Sure, I think I can have I think that's sort of an administrative question. So I would say we have definitely seen an increase in cases since we got our last circuit judge. We have not had a new circuit judge created in the last 20 years. There were a lot of...
It's been that long.
Wow. So there were a number, 20, give or take 20 years.
Yeah, a good amount of time.
in the early 2000s, there were some judges added, but we haven't had any added since then.
Okay.
So we've definitely had an increase since then. And I absolutely have ideas about, things that we could do. I mean, like I said, some of the city traffic, they've been closing those courts, and so those cases are coming to the Hillsborough courthouse, the state court, and there are judges that have to do those traffic cases instead of doing custody cases or felony cases. So that's something that we're making it work, but sure, having additional help would always be a great thing.
The idea is to have a balanced workload, right?
Right.
So no one person is underworked or over.
Yeah, if you don't have enough judges to handle the workload, what happens? You just have delays.
That's right.
You're going to have cases that are just... Missouri does have time standards. The Missouri Supreme Court has rules, and there are time standards we're supposed to meet, and we do a pretty good job of meeting those standards, but it does get tougher if you have a higher caseload per judge because things are just going to take longer because you don't have enough days.
No, I know for a fact that I've got, in my council district, I've got some constituents that have complained about their neighbors, and it's gone to the muni court for to handle the solid waste findings and stuff like that, and knowing that once it goes to trial, it's going to be a year before that it comes up, or 9 months, or year and a half. It all depends. But between the lawyer time on the county's end, and then finding a slot to get that in, it's probably a pretty low level of importance on your end.
So that would probably be the Jeffco Municipal Court, and which is actually that was the job that I had before I became a circuit judge. I was the prosecutor in the Jeffco Muni Court. I think that you might be surprised with how fast they move some of those cases. Now, that's not to say that no cases get delayed. Sometimes there are cases, especially if you're trying to work on, if there's property that needs to be fixed up, because at the end of the day, that's what you want.
That's what you want.
Cases.
Yeah.
You just want it killing it up. It's not, I know for a fact, those are not money makers for the county.
Right.
The county does not walk away rich from solid waste cases. Those are cases where you just want to get the problem fixed, and that's the goal. So,
see what happens, Bill? You get 2 lawyers talking to each other, and time flies when you're having fun.
Well, you know what? I know a lot of times I'm the dumbest guy in the room, but never has it been so evident as this moment right here.
We'll take you along for the ride. Bill, we're going to continue our conversation. It's been an awesome conversation. I love this conversation. It's fantastic. What are we going to continue to talk with the judge about when we come back?
Well, it's my understanding the 23rd Circuit won an award, and we're going to talk about that. Vic's going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, these are elected officials, and we're going to have a judge race this year in Jefferson County. And so we're going to ask him not political questions, but as a citizen, what are some things to look for? What are some things you can ask them that they can answer? And what are some things that they can't answer because that's not because they don't want to, but because that's the law. And so that they're not trying to be evasive. They just can't.
Billy, that was very insightful, actually, because I know you are aware that there are different rules between like a state rep or Senate race and a judicial race.
Right.
So we'll break all of that down and more when we come back with the good judge himself, Vic Melenbrink, here on Jeffco Patriot Radio, 1019, 94.1. Yep, it's News Talk, STL.
I never.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
Hey guys, Jefferson County Councilman Billy Crow here from Jeffco Patriot Radio. On behalf of Tim Jones and I just want to thank you for making Jeffco Patriot Radio the #1 listened to show on Sundays here on News Talk STL, where we dive into all the things happening in and around Jefferson County. Check Tim Jones and I out on Jeffco Patriot Radio this and every Sunday at high noon here on 1019, 94.1. News Talk STL.
Welcome back to our third and final segment here on Sunday, February the 8th. How'd that happen? Valentine's Day is this coming weekend.
And there's one more thing I forgot to mention in the intro. My daughter turned 16 years old yesterday.
My goodness, happy birthday.
So
yeah. Oh, yes, you do. I've got 2 of them. It's absolutely terrifying. This is Jeffco Patriot Radio. Yep, big games coming up in just a couple hours. Thank you for spending your early afternoon pre-Super Bowl activities with us, and hope you have a great Super Bowl Sunday. The Olympics in full gear as well. The Winter Games are being covered by all of us here at News Talk STL. We'll have updates, Winter Game updates, throughout the week here at News Talk STL, 4 times a day. So I know you love living. I know you love listening on the weekends. We know you love listening weekdays as well. Of course, to the Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show, Evening Drive, 4 to 6 p.m., and all of our other great programming. So everything's at newstalkstl.com. All right, let's get back to the judge. We have Judge Vic Melenbrink. He is the presiding judge of the Circuit Court of Jefferson County. We've been talking a lot of things. I know we had a couple other quick topics here. You're constantly, Judge, looking to make sure that the court stays up with the times, right? Transparency, modernization, also very important topics for the administrative side of justice.
Yes. That's something that's I take very seriously, as far as being the presiding judge, making sure that we are doing everything we can to, leverage some of those technological innovations. A big one was, I guess, more forced upon us during COVID.
Yeah.
We started using a lot more technology as far as doing remote hearings. I still do a lot of conferences.
So that's worked out fairly well? Something you've continued?
I think it's worked great. I still use them. I know some of the other judges use them. Not for trials. They're not really good for trials because cross-examination by WebEx or Zoom doesn't work all that well. But they're great for conferences. And it's great for attorneys because the attorneys can stay at their office. They can be checking emails while they're waiting for their case to be called. The main thing that all that does is it saves clients money because
that's right.
They know that an attorney knows if they have a case in Jefferson County or with a judge who does more of that stuff, WebEx or Zoom or remote, they might know I'm only going to have to make 1 or 2 trips to the courthouse instead of making 6 or 7 trips, and they can charge a lot less money. Helping people, that makes it easier for people to afford lawyers, which is beneficial for everybody involved. Everything's a little easier if you have an attorney, helping you understand the process. So we've really tried to help facilitate those remote hearings. And the other side of the sort of technology changes we've seen a lot of is public access. Missouri has a really, really good court records public access system. Nobody thinks about that because most people don't look for court records in 2 states. But attorneys that I've talked to that do other state work are very jealous of Missouri's system. It's actually really nice as far as being able to access your docket. And now you can even access publicly a lot of the court documents that are filed in cases, which is a massive improvement as far as transparency.
And where do people find that system?
If you go to courts.mo.gov, that's the Missouri courts website, and there's a link. It's a CaseNet is the name of it. So you can go there, and a couple of years ago, they actually set it up so that the public could access those case documents. And obviously there's restrictions. Some of the stuff's redacted or, juvenile cases aren't going to be up there. But a lot of cases are, and people used to have to go to the courthouse to get those records, which was kind of a hassle. But now people can, you can access documents in your case at home, which is a significant increase in transparency.
And the political hitmen out there absolutely love it.
I have no doubt that there are pluses and minuses.
That's right.
Courts.mo.gov. I used that back in the day, and I know it's dramatically advanced since then. Courts.mo.gov.
So, Vic, one of the reasons you wanted to come on the show is you want to talk about an award that the circuit clerk or the circuit court has won. Tell us about that and why that's important.
Sure. Well, like I said, one of the things that's important to me is making sure that we stay on top of case processing and, that we're getting cases handled in a timely manner. Because we don't want people to be delayed because, that costs more money. If you have attorneys that are on a case that takes a year to get done, and it's just people deserve to have their cases resolved quickly. So 2 statistics that are important to me are making sure that backlog, I want to keep track of the backlog and make sure that doesn't get too high. And one way you do that is making sure that you're finishing cases as fast as they come in. That's it's a pretty simple statistic. It's not any, you don't have to be a math major to do it. I call it it's called the clearance rate. So there's an award that circuits can earn if they meet certain standards for clearance rate. And I'm really happy that for the second year in a row, Jefferson County has earned that. It's called the O'Toole Award, and I'm going to a presiding judge meeting in a few weeks, and I'll be getting a little plaque. And for somebody who's takes administration, and I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I really like that end of it. I couldn't be happier that it seems like the work that we're doing. It's hard to say whether a judge is a good judge or a bad judge. That's a really tricky thing to do. But at least I can say with a pretty high degree of confidence, we're working hard.
You have a metric that you're measuring this by.
Yeah,
second year in a row, you've all won this?
It is the second year in a row.
That's fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
So if I understand this award, basically that means you guys are the most efficient court in Missouri.
I don't want to. So it's not the kind of award where it's like number one in the county. There's just standards. So there are other circuits. I think last year maybe 5 or 6 circuits. I think there's 40 circuits in the state.
Pretty notable. You're the top 5.
It's definitely less than 10 that win this award every year.
That's amazing.
And we're one of the bigger. It's usually smaller circuits. So we're one of the larger population-wise circuits that gets this award. So it's an achievement. And I mean. I would be remiss if I didn't say great job to the clerks and the judges.
Right. It's a whole team.
Right. Yeah. It's a whole team effort. And you know what? I'll even go out there and say even the attorneys in Jefferson County. We actually have a really good local bar, and they really do work to get cases finished. Sometimes attorneys have a reputation for milking cases and trying to, soak as much as they can. I don't see nearly as much of that in Jefferson County as I think exists in some other cases. We have a really good local bar.
That results in a happier constituency because, look, going to court, not always a pleasant experience. Sometimes it can be, but a lot of times you're going to court for either a criminal situation or a domestic dispute or a contract litigation. People are going to courts because they can't resolve their disputes, so they're asking the judicial system to do so, or there's an administration of justice through the criminal code. So the fact that you can at least handle those things in a timely manner at least allows people then to more quickly move on with their lives.
That's exactly right. We want to make sure that people can move on. Nobody wants to be in court. We want to let people get on with the rest of their lives. And so, the clerks, and big thanks to the clerks and everybody that puts in all the time to make that work, because it's a lot of work.
So next, Vic, we're going to make you a little uncomfortable here. We're going to talk about elections. We're going to talk about judge elections, okay? So for those out there that don't know, when it comes to elections, judges have a different set of rules than the rest of us politicians, because they're not politicians, they're judges. So, Vic, first off, explain to folks what are the differences, what they can answer, what they can't answer, and then explain, in your opinion, your personal opinion, what should voters look for when they see 2 judges' names on a ballot.
Sure. So just as far as the rules go, the general rule of thumb is don't say anything that would indicate that you're prejudging a case. Okay. When cases come in, you need to approach it from a fair and unbiased manner. If you go into a case having a preconceived notion about what should happen, you shouldn't hear that case. So you don't want to give the impression talking to people or answering questions on the campaign trail. If you say, I'm never going to put somebody on probation for drugs. Well, you shouldn't say that because you need to be open-minded as far as maybe some cases it's good and some cases it's not. So giving an indication of prejudging is the thing that you really need to avoid. So you can't say, what would you do in a case like this? That's an easy one that if a judge candidate answers that question, they probably shouldn't. So don't ask those questions. The questions that I think are things that are definitely within bounds. What kind of experience do you have? As far as what kind of law did you practice? Did you, what kind of trials did you participate in? Did you do bench trials or jury trials, or what kind of courtroom experience? Did you do any probate work or juvenile work? The sort of stuff that we do in the courthouse, those are always, I think that kind of experience is a good thing. to talk about because that's something that's relevant to if you're going to be a judge in those cases. I think your courtroom demeanor, now that's not necessarily something that a question would answer, but I think courtroom demeanor is an incredibly important part of being a judge. You are going to have people come in who frustrate you
every day.
And it can be a very frustrating thing. And I try really hard to have patience because I'm getting people on their worst day.
Yeah.
Right? When people are coming into court, especially on trials, it's one of the worst days of your life, probably. So I try to keep that in mind and be patient with people and help them, not help them try their case, but help them at least understand the process so I can make sure that I try to get to the best result I can as far as understanding what's going on. So having a courtroom demeanor that's a little patient and you don't fly off the handle just when somebody's a little bit frustrating. I think that's really important. That's not really a question that you can answer, but when you talk to a candidate, seeing whether they have that kind of, a temperament that would be appropriate. I think those are important things that you could look for in a judicial candidate.
Take the measure of the man and woman before you.
Right. So in Jefferson County, the circuit judges have 6-year terms. The associate circuit judges have 4-year terms. So we do still have partisan elections in Jefferson County. Some of the other larger counties in the Missouri Supreme Court, those are appointed by the governor. But in Jefferson County, we still do have judge elections. So I know that's coming up later this year.
Indeed.
Well, Vic, thanks for coming on and educating me about judges, and
I found it very like I said, I used to practice law. I haven't in over 10 years. I'm a recovering lawyer.
That's right.
But I always enjoyed going to Hillsborough, and the judges all there were very kind and helpful. And of course, my good old favorite Judge Daryl Missy was always the one I looked forward to seeing. So I heard that you have nothing but positive things to say about him, even if he was in the room here with us today.
he was the presiding judge when I started, so yes. I have nothing but good things to say about Judge Missy.
Indeed.
If you ever want to come and take a tour of the courthouse, I'd be happy to give
anybody will for sure.
I'd tell you what, I'll give as many people in Jefferson County tours of the courthouse as I possibly can because that's something that everybody should see. Everybody should see the courthouse.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Well, we would love to have you back again soon sometime. Thanks so much for stopping by.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
And being on Jeffco Patriot Radio. All right. That's Judge Vic Melenbrink. We're going to bid him adieu, and we're going to continue our discussion here as we wrap things up and let you go to all of your Sunday afternoon activities, the big games, such and so forth. Billy, it was a wild ride, as always, in Jefferson City. Let me tell you, there's a lot of hope and optimism. Things are moving, but the Democrats are trying to filibuster everything, every day, all the time. And the rules change was made this week that I wasn't a big fan of. The Democrats, I think, extracted a pound of flesh, and I'm not sure the Republicans got much for it because even though the gubernatorial appointments, that's what they were filibustering.
Sure.
They're just mad about everything, the Democrats these days. So they let the gubernatorial appointments go, but that was only after the Republicans agreed to, I think, tie their hands a little more tightly when it comes to moving the previous question motion, which is how we get past the filibuster.
Yes.
Billy, I love the filibuster. I love Senate debate, but you can't make moving the supermajority's agenda such a high hurdle that you never get anything done ever. The supermajority cannot be beholden to the tyranny of the superminority.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the filibuster is there to protect the minority's rights to be heard, but not to create a tyranny.
And to completely stop everything in its tracks
all
the time
absolutely.
and never let anything pass.
Absolutely.
All right, Billy, in the final couple minutes we have to go, there's, as we've been talking about for, my goodness, months now, and it's finally here before us, 2026, a huge election year.
Yeah.
A lot of dominoes have fallen, and then they've refallen, and then they've been put back up and knocked over again. And one of the state representatives who was running for state senate until very recently, Representative Renee Reuter, has shifted lanes and decided to run for judicial positions.
That's right.
Associate or circuit? Do we know?
Associate. She's going to be running. Tony Mansala is going to be retiring.
Okay.
And so her and another judge, Colby Smith, I think is his name, they're going to be running for that open seat.
So they will be running in a judicial election for that seat, which will be decided likely in August.
Right, because once again, it is partisan, right? But Jefferson County being a red county, the Republican primary will tell you who will win that in November.
All right. Any other news we need to know about that specific
Well,
race?
we're talking about Miss Renee Reuter here, and we talk about, you brought up Democrats, and Democrats love to tell people how to live their lives. It's very interesting that Miss Reuter is a Republican sitting legislator, and she's introduced a bill, HB 3119, and that is to remove or revoke basically the right of motorcycle riders to ride without their helmet. Now, there was a long, hard
championed
fight.
by my very good friend, now Congressman Eric Burleson.
Yeah.
Freedom and Liberty Warrior.
Absolutely. And now she is trying to turn us back into a nanny state when it comes to whether or not you can wear your helmet or not. And, it's very interesting. Her argument is like, well, they save lives. It's a common sense thing. It's like, yeah, but it's still my right to do it or not. You know what I mean? And so that's very, very disturbing to see a Republican legislature wanting to tell me how to live my life.
Mm-hmm. And, we can talk about what actually happens if you do or do not wear a helmet and whether or not you survive or don't survive those kind of crashes. And we can also talk about sometime in a future show, okay, if you're not going to wear a helmet, but you're maybe on state Medicaid, well, maybe then that doesn't pay for your injury then.
Yeah, I mean, there's answers to that, right?
There is. There's personal responsibility.
That's right.
To discuss all the way through. Oh, my goodness. Well, Congressman Eric Burleson may have a thing or two to say about
maybe we should have him on the show.
We possibly could. Until that day, though, we're going to have to head out for now. Have a great afternoon. Billy and I will remind you one final time that Valentine's Day is this coming Saturday. Don't forget your favorite Valentine.
That's right.
Billy and I will try not to as well. We have wonderful wives indeed. We'll be back next Sunday, as we are on every Sunday, just after high noon here on Jeffco Patriot Radio. Thanks so much for listening to us, as always, and watching us. News Talk STL.
Hey Jeffco, this is Jim Avery from Avery Injury Law. We're personal injury attorneys that specialize in car wrecks, dog bites, semi-truck crashes, or really anything that happens that's not your fault that results in an injury. At Avery Injury Law, you can trust us to help you when you have to fight with the insurance companies. Don't battle them alone. Choose your friend, Jim Avery from Avery Injury Law. I'm not afraid of insurance companies. Let me fight them for you. Contact us at 314-549-5600 or averyinjurylaw.com.